A sea of bodies, bass lines like a heartbeat with a DJ conducting that orchestra of euphoria. Nightclubs seem like a distant dream in a time of COVID-19. Yet producer and DJ Jennifer Cardini has kept the music playing, streaming it live and curating 2 new compilations for the label Dischi Autunno. She joins us in the studio to tell us more. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi.
Now, let's start with these 2 records. It's a double disc, Intermezzo Uno and Due. These twin selections have been described as Italo disco, electro, dance. Can you tell us about the moods you were trying to create on these 2 records? Where did you want to take people with these tracks?
I think it's a little bit of everything that I'm DJing, or like a little bit like my discotheque through the years, like with new wave, EBM influences, Italo disco, but with a little touch of futurism, like a little bit like we had taken all that culture, like everything we've played the last 30 years, the influences, and we give a second lecture, like a more actual one.
Okay, well, let's get...
Because there is really young producers like Kendall and Pablo, and you can feel the influence they have from the 80s.
But looking ahead at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Now let's get an idea of that. This is a mix of Curses by Gina Lollobrigida featuring Chichi. Now, Jennifer, you refer to that mix from your career. You've been mixing for almost 30 years now, playing around the world. And it all started when you started going to clubs as a teenager. But the scene was pretty different then. There were no mobile phones, no social media. How did you work out where to go? Which DJ nights were cool?
You could find, there were info lines, or like, how do you call this? Like, photocopies of itineraries, and also like it was just the rumor of where the party was going to be, and the feeling of freedom was really important at that time, and we still have this. I mean, even though now it's very like structured and it became a full industry, we still have this freedom in some clubs where cameras and phones are not allowed. We try to keep that. But before it was really about, yes, the envie of going out, like, you know, the energy, the craving of wanting to be together and raving.
And word of mouth, of course. Now, over the last year, the digital space has dominated many areas of our lives because of the pandemic. You've streamed sets to thousands of people recently at the Gaieté Lyrique, for example, here in Paris. But as the vaccination campaign is speeding up here in Europe, we're moving forward, or perhaps back, to the more in-person experiences. And in the UK, thousands of people attended a warehouse party in Liverpool as part of a trial. Do you think we can expect the same thing here in France?
Well, I would love that. I'm not sure if they would think about a solution like this, but it would, of course, be very important, I think, to do it, because there is a full aspect to the electronic scene that is, I think, neglected in France, which is the psychological effect. Like, a dance floor is therapeutic. People meet, they dance together, they're happy together, they share a moment. It's a social experience. And I think that for a lot of young people, this is very damaging not to be able to do that. So I would very, very love to see friends making trials and trying experiences like the one in Liverpool, which I got a bit jealous over, I have to say.
Do you think we will be able to go back to those pre-pandemic times in the clubs?
Yes, I think so. And I mean, it's a bit cliché, but maybe we will also not take everything for granted. But I hope so. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel very soon.
Now, early on in your career, you were resident DJ at Le Pulpe here in Paris. It was a really eclectic, vibrant little club. It shut down in 2007. And at the time, there was a lot of opposition to that, a lot of complaints since then that Paris's nightlife has come under threat. Do you think that's just nostalgia, or was Paris a more nocturnal city in the past?
I think the last couple of years it has been quite good, actually, with Curate and Dehors Brut as well. But I think there is a delay between how the city of Paris or has friends see clubbing, they don't see clubbing as a culture. I mean, club culture exists. I'm part of it. They just, most of the time, see this as people wanting just to party. Like, if you take Berlin, for example, the place electronic music has in a city like Berlin is completely different. And it's part of the economy of the city as well, which is something that, in my point of view, France is missing a little bit. It's missing the point there. They should embrace club culture and not trying to restrain freedom of young people. I mean, like I said before, this makes that they don't see the aspect that is interesting in clubbing, which is the social aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of Berlin, the city's been in the headlines recently because of gentrification. The rent cap, which kept a lot of accommodation quite affordable, has been lifted. How do you think the demographics of a city affect its club scene? Do you think this is going to change things in Berlin?
Yes and no. I mean, it's still one of the cheapest cities where to live in Europe right now. Like, I mean, rent-wise, it's way lower than Paris. It has generated mass clubbing tourism, which has positive effects and negative effects as well. But in terms of tourism and what it brings to the city of Berlin, yeah, it's been great, but you can already feel that a lot of people are moving to the east, like Prague, for example, or to Greece, because gentrification is slowly going through Europe to cheaper places.
Now, as well as the soundtrack, the aesthetics have emerged as an important feature in nightclubs too, with architecture, lighting and decor a huge part of the experience. A new exhibition at the Victoria and Albert Museum in Dundee is exploring that phenomenon. It's called Night Fever, Designing Club Culture. There are some examples of the mythical nightclubs of the last half-century, from New York's Studio 54 to Manchester's Hacienda. Jennifer, looking back at some of the fantastic venues you've played, is there one that really sticks in your mind for its style?
Well, I love Panorama Bar, but I have to say that Trouw in Amsterdam was really, really amazing, and Printworks in London is also really great. It's an old printing factory, and it's like huge. And this is, in my opinion, what we should more do in France. Like, we still think that nightlife has to be in a club somehow. And I think it's beautiful when it gets out of clubs and into old warehouses or museum even.
Now, speaking of the physical space, another change we've seen over the years is how dating applications have taken over when it comes to meeting up and forging relationships, especially in the LGBTQ community. Some say the virtual world is contributing to the closure of queer-friendly spaces. Do you agree, or have you seen resistance?
I mean, yes, it has changed. Like, of course, before you would go to a party and you will meet up. That definitely is not the only place anymore. But it's still a safe place, and that's very important that dance floors keep being a safe places. But if in terms of bars, yes, I think it has affected bars. There are less and less bars where people used to hook up before.
And do you think people are planning something underground or resisting that somehow?
Yes, I hope so.
Let's hope
Sorry.
Let's hope so indeed.
Yes.
Now, finally, we asked you about what's on your cultural radar, and you recommended a series, We Are Who We Are. What is it about that show that impressed you?
I think also because of the situation we are in and what I said before, I liked that series because it's really about young people wanting to be together. And you have also the opposition between... It's set on an American army base, so you have all the structure and how it's rigid and how there are so many rules. And then you have them like kind of floating away in the beautiful Italy and experiencing, trying to find, how do you say, like limitation to who they are, like also just trying to get to know themselves, their sexuality, and it's very poetic. The soundtrack is amazing, and I also love the director. I loved Call Me by Your Name, which was very beautiful movie too. So
very interesting.
I'm in the middle of the
soundtrack.
series, so.
Okay, no spoilers then. Thank you very much, Jennifer.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll leave you with a clip of We Are Who We Are. Otherwise, do remember to check out our website for more arts and culture. We're also on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. There's more news coming up on France 24 just after this.
If you pay attention, you'll discover real life. There's a revolution going on inside of you.
He's always being complicated.
It's exhausting, trying to be his mother and his father all at the same time.
Since you got here, everything's so mixed up.
Mixed up good or mixed up bad?
Mixed up, full of life.